Okay. Hey, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I was just informed that Mr. Attorney General has to leave at noon, so we will get moving so we can get him out of here by quarter after. I want to thank all of you. I'm John McCabe with the Intelligencer up in Wheeling and with Ogden Newspapers. And as you're sitting down, I did want to take just a quick moment to note, again, all of our student journalists with us today. I know WVU got all the credit early, but I got the chance to sit next to these nice folks from Marshall. Would all the student journalists please stand up today? See how many we have with us. Excellent. For those of us that have been doing this for a while, it wasn't all that long ago when we would have no student journalist or maybe one attend these events. So it really is nice. I was just talking with Andy Nicely from the Clarksburg Exponent Telegram and other publications, and we're all hiring. So as you get out of school, look to your local papers, look to public broadcasting, look to the Charleston paper, Wheeling, Parkersburg, wherever. We need infusions of young talent into our newsrooms to help us transform to the digital world better. So thank you all for being here with us this morning. The panel I'm overseeing today, as you can see, is with 3 of our 4 Board of Public Works members. To my immediate left is Attorney General J.B. McCuskey. Then we have Secretary of State Kris Warner and State Auditor Mark Hunt. I was going to do a little introduction of each, but I think for the sake of getting this moving so we can stay on time through the afternoon, I'll just have our Attorney General, our new Attorney General, former State Auditor, Mr. McCuskey, come up, and we'll start introductions that way. And just like the last panel, after they give a 4 or 5 minute talk, we will go to questions directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, John, do you mind if I just take questions? Sure. Okay, great. How is everybody? You guys ready for a big session? Yeah. It's great to see all the students here. Like he said, I got to be the auditor for the last 8 years, and we're really excited to have Mark in here now. But what I think you'll find in this government is that we have a commitment to radical transparency. And one of the things that we talked about a lot in the auditor's office is that government works best when people understand what it's doing. And that is really a partnership between taxpayers and the media. And so we're really, really hopeful that West Virginia is becoming a place where our media members, and particularly our young people, have access to the government, what they're doing, so that when you do complain, when you do go to the voting booth, you can say, I know why you did that, I know what you did, and I'm going to be making an informed decision. So if we cross that line and get into places where it's hard for our media members to do great work, let us know. With all that being said, I got sworn in to be the Attorney General about a month ago, and I sort of spent my life, my adult life, in public service. And we all get this incredible opportunity to get to live in West Virginia surrounded by the best people in the entire world. And I think if you look back over the last 16 or so years, what you've seen is that we have a state legislature that has really started to reduce an enormous amount of the barriers that prevented our economy from growing. We've spent a ton of time working on our business climate, our tax climate. We've, for the last 8 years, had a governor who was incredible at economic development, and we have, for the first time probably in my life, we're cutting ribbons at a pace that prevents politicians from going to all the events. And so what we're looking at now is a West Virginia that is positioned for unbridled growth in a way that has never been in my lifetime. I've lived in West Virginia my whole life, and I feel more confident in West Virginia's future today than I ever have. And there are people all across the country who are saying, I don't really like living in a gated community in Baltimore, and I don't really want to live in a 2-hour away suburb in Houston. And maybe it would be easier if my family lived in a great little small town in a beautiful little state where my family feels comfortable and safe, and where my lifestyle is a little slower and a little easier, and the people around me have the sort of modest values that enable us to all get along together. And so what are we doing? What are all of us up here doing? What is the legislature doing? What's the governor doing? It's we're all trying to position West Virginia in a place where everyone that shares our Mountaineer spirit feels comfortable to move home. And we're super excited in the Attorney General's office, especially just in the last couple days, to be able to defend the things that West Virginia does best, and to be able to defend the things that we've done to build this country. And we've been able to defend the ways in which West Virginia has played the most integral and key part in the expansion of the American economy for the last 20 years. more than 20 years, excuse me, for the last 150 years. And there's a gratefulness that I believe that those who don't live in West Virginia need to show to the people of West Virginia for the things that we've done to make them successful. And we're very, very hopeful that we're going to continue to do that. I've put together a really fantastic team of people. Callie Cart is here, who's my communications director and deputy chief of staff, and we have a myriad of new lawyers that have come in from firms all across West Virginia that are just champing at the bit to make West Virginia the place that I've been trying to make it my entire life. And so with all that being said, I know that was pretty vague. I do have to leave a little early, so I think I'm going to go ahead and take a few questions now if you guys have them. Yes, sir.
One of the issues, obviously AGs can, have a lot of latitude, like what kind of legal issues they want to go after or address. What are a couple of things that you're looking to address here in the first year of AG?
So a few things, but I think the most important one of it is our energy sector. West Virginia is the premier energy producing state in the country. We have the best energy producing workforce, we have the best energy producing companies, and they have a history of doing what's right. And we believe that there is a delta between the amount of electricity that this world is going to need in the next 10 years and what we're producing in order to power the AI and computing and data revolution. And we simply cannot use windmills and solar panels to power this. The need is too great. And so we are hoping to position West Virginia as the preeminent place for this new energy consuming revolution to be based and say to the world, look, we're going to make the cheapest, best, most reliable electricity in the world, and we're going to make sure that America continues to lead in AI and data and computing, because we cannot allow the countries that wish to do us harm to beat us to the punch. You're welcome. You're next, Stephen.
So looking, your predecessor, now Governor Morrisey, obviously was very involved in the creation of the first foundation.
Yeah.
And those bylaws, that's off the ground now, they're working. What do you see your relationship with that organization being now that they are independent, obviously separate from you all, but that is a product of the AG's office and a beast of code? I mean, it's a creature of code. It was created through the legislature.
So first, we settled with Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family last week. It was a relatively historic $7.1 billion settlement. West Virginia is due to receive $55 million of that. One of the things that we were able to negotiate is that we're going to get paid in a much shorter time frame than the rest of the states, so that we will be getting larger checks and our money faster, and all that money will end up in the foundation. So the Attorney General's office doesn't actually have a relationship officially with the foundation. I have known Jonathan Bohr, the director of that foundation, for a very long time. He's one of my great friends, and I think there can be an unofficial partnership where we continue to understand that the actions of people like the Sacklers and Purdue Pharma have decades-long reaches into the families and into the communities of West Virginia. And we've got one really great crack at this apple. It's very unlikely that we're ever going to have $1 billion nest egg to try to solve these problems. And for us, it's really twofold, right? The most important thing is to make sure that way less kids and people are getting addicted than ever were before. We can't continue to cycle this. It can't be we get 2 people better and 4 people get addicted. It has to be a significantly less amount of people becoming addicted in the future. And then we have to provide really first-class services for people that are getting help, that are getting better, and are ready to become great West Virginia citizens again. That is a two-front war. And the thing that we've done is I hired a guy named Josh Barker, who came with me from the auditor's office. And Josh, I don't believe would be embarrassed for me to say, but Josh is an addict. Josh has worked with me for a long time. I've been through his recovery. And Josh is going to be our director of recovery support services. And so Josh's role is going to be ensuring that I have eyes and ears in every corner of West Virginia as it relates to addiction and addiction recovery, so that we can always understand from the front lines, from the addict's perspective and from the family's perspective, what it is the Attorney General, with their relatively broad-reaching powers, can be doing to support those efforts. Stephen.
Yeah, Steve Adams, Ogden Newspapers. This might be an awkward question because obviously the Trump administration is doing a number of freezes on federal spending that are affecting a number of things in West Virginia, or could, because it may be frozen, may not be frozen, may be under injunction, may not be under injunction. It keeps going back and forth. But a lot of nonprofits rely on federal funding, of course, in this state. A lot of state funding itself comes from federal funding, and we got big economic development projects, Form, Nucor, Green Power, that also rely on this. They're having their money frozen. I'm not going to ask you whether you would join a lawsuit to challenge some of those issues, but is your office monitoring that stuff? Because just like federal overreach is happening, or has happened sometimes with our energy sector, this could be an example of federal overreach with some of our other entities in the state. So, like, what are you monitoring that? What are you doing in regards with that?
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
You.
We are monitoring it to a degree. We talked about earlier, I just got done 8 years in the auditor's office. And in that office, we provided the actual checks that came out of every single one of those grants. And I can assure you that none of them are on pay 7 days. These grants lag 6, 8 months, sometimes a year between invoice and payment, which is something that we're very hopeful Governor Morrissey is going to fix. Our nonprofits have been hanging on by a thread for years. And a temporary or perceived pause for a week, and I believe it was only for 12 hours, the actual pause is not something that I'm particularly worried about. I think it is important for the president, any president, to be able to get a handle on how it is that the federal money is being spent. I think that is a rational and reasonable thing to say, especially when everyone knows it's temporary. And I think there's a lot of political outrage by people who probably didn't support this president, and firing employees and saying, oh, the world is ending, when in fact they know that they weren't going to receive that funding for 6 or 8 months anyways. And this is something that I can show you in the OASIS system anytime anybody would like. So, I'm going to give some grace here, let them try to get their hands around what's going on. If we get 6, 10 months down the line and there's massive intentional and legislatively driven funding cuts to the programs that were created under the last administration, then we'll step in. But right now, I think it's time for everybody to take a deep breath, realize that this is a very temporary situation and a situation that isn't actually affecting anything in real time.
It's Mike Toney from Gazette Mail. Thanks for your time. You mentioned energy. PJM, our regional grid operator, has gotten significant criticism for their handling of the interconnection queue, handling fossil fuel plant retirements. And Pennsylvania recently forced a settlement that would set price caps for capacity auctions to try to keep electric rates from skyrocketing. What concerns, if any, do you have about PJM, and what do you view as your role as AG in protecting any threat you perceive from PJM's regional grid oversight, from keeping rates from continuing to rise as they have more sharply than other states in recent years?
So I think you kind of answered your question a little tiny bit during your question. PJM's job is to make sure that West Virginia consumers have low-cost electricity, and it appears that they're not doing that job particularly well. I think from a macro standpoint, I have always viewed PJM with a little bit of skepticism, and the reason being is that they are a non-governmental and or quasi-governmental group that serves a very governmental function. And so my fear is that the oversight of PJM is frequently not nearly sufficient enough and not linked enough to the people whom they are regulating, and that they are having a regulatory, they have a regulatory effect without a regulatory, without the same kind of oversight that most regulators have. Meaning the EPA changes with administrations, PJM does not. And so we have to make sure that PJM is staying within its own lane as a non-regulatory body, and that is something that we have talked about a lot within the office. And what are the ways in which we can fulfill that duty? I think of the AG's office to make sure that the people and the energy producers in West Virginia aren't being unfairly regulated by a non-regulatory body.
That from in your position.
Can we just say TBD? The answer is I can do a lot of things. What we can do is we can make sure that all of the ways in which PJM was created and the commercial environment with which they operate are acting in good faith, are not violating any of our antitrust or federal legal guidelines, and that they are fulfilling the purpose for which they were chartered. All the way over here.
Hello, my name is Jada Mills. I'm with Marshall University. Following your recent response around addiction, what is the state doing for children with parents who are addicted? What are their resources, and are you working on anything now or in the future? Specifically, children who are not in foster care or in the system.
I think you just hit upon what is probably our greatest challenge as a state right now. When you start to look at the numbers, and you start to think about the life of I have a 9 and a 7-year-old, right? And when you go home and you know, I've been blessed to be able to have a life where my kids are comfortable and happy and hugged. There are so many kids in this state who are not. And it is really remarkable what a stable life with a little bit of love and a lunch every day and a little note in your lunchbox and somebody helping you with your homework goes. And this is the challenge of all of our lifetimes is how do we make sure that this generation of kids whose parents fell victim to this problem do not fall victim to it themselves. And there's a self-confidence issue that comes with kids that get tossed around. There's educational issues with kids that get tossed around. And I think what you're going to see from the Morrissey administration and in ways that we are incredibly hopeful to help is that there's going to be a real commitment to making this government a responsive group that says the well-being of these children is the most important thing, the most important function of this government, and real, actual support will start flowing not just in spreadsheets, but into homes. And that's the challenge, right, is how do you take an esoteric idea that looks great on a piece of paper and actually change a significant amount of children's lives, not just for today, but for when they turn 25 and they're sitting here asking these questions to some politician where they say, look, you know, I grew up in a house that was affected by substance abuse, and my mom is clean now, and I learned from that experience, and I had teachers and support that made sure that I was able to go to college or I was able to go to trade school and start a family of my own. And we can start to put the substance abuse, particularly from the opioid realm, behind us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for having to leave. Thank you. See you guys later.
Just real quick, did want to thank Attorney General McCuskey for his time, and our apologies for his early departure, but that's what happens sometimes. Did want to introduce now and also take 1 minute to give as always, a special note of thanks to, at this time, Secretary Warner and the Secretary of State's office in particular for the work it does with our newspapers in West Virginia, with the Press Association, and helping us to meet our mission. Secretary Warner, welcome.
Thank you. Before we get started, let me introduce you to Diane Nestor as our Assistant Communications Director right here, and Landon Palmer. I'm afraid we're going to lose Landon to law school very soon, so we've made the addition of Diane to our team. I got to tell you, I grew up with a newspaper man. My dad ran a small newspaper, community newspaper. It ended up going to over 20 small communities here in southern West Virginia and 7 counties. Literally before I was in the first grade, my dad would work all night long printing that paper. He would then leave the papers on the carport. We would roll them. My brothers, I had 5 brothers, we'd roll the newspapers, and they would be ready for pickup for those that were going to go out and deliver the newspapers. So I have a love for newspapers. He had 2 A.B. Dick 1250 printing presses, in the basement. We did all this from the house right here in Charleston. But earlier, you all recognized student journalists. There's one other student journalist I want to recognize here. Those same A.B. Dick 1250 printing presses in the basement were used for an underground newspaper at GW called the GW Pride. And one of our esteemed members of the legal community in West Virginia is with us. Tom Haywood, I know that was tightly regarded who wrote extensively for the GW Pride, but thank you for your early start. Tom's waving back here. We all know there are three major responsibilities for the Secretary of State's office: the Chief Elections Officer, the Chief Business Registrar, and then an active member of the West Virginia Board of Public Works. But I want to focus on our legislative agenda and point out what we intend to do here in our first year as Secretary of State. I will continue our office's work with the legislature to make it as easy as possible to start a new business in West Virginia. My background is in business and entrepreneurship, and I'm excited to increase the services and resources already in place at our one-stop business center. As you may know, we have locations in Charleston, Clarksburg, and Martinsburg. It used to take up to 2 weeks to start a new business in West Virginia, but we can now do that in less than an hour. I intend to put my experience to work. I want to bring more public and private partners into the fold to create and promote the services, funding, and programs that can help entrepreneurs, especially our small businesses and startups, be successful in their first year and beyond. Turning to elections, the integrity of our processes, systems, and personnel is at the heart of our voter confidence. The names of deceased people, convicted felons, and out-of-state citizens will continue to be removed from the voter rolls. This session, I'll support the implementation of photo ID for voters and work tirelessly to ensure every eligible citizen will have the right and opportunity to vote. I'm already making plans to provide counties with more resources and guidance for voter management, poll worker education, and support for ensuring the protection of their critical elections infrastructure. Those who attempt to cheat in any election will be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. To accomplish those goals, my legislative priorities for the upcoming session focus primarily on election integrity and the financial stability of the office. As the state's chief elections official, election integrity is a top priority. Through my legislative priorities, I intend to build on the relationships and expertise that our office has developed over the last 8 years. This legislative session, I will support legislation that keeps voter rolls clean and up to date as possible, strengthens voter ID requirements by removing non-photo documents such as utility bills and bank statements, increases transparency in dark money campaign finance activities, increases penalties for failure to file campaign finance reports on time, streamlines the election complaint processes, clarifies voter registration eligibility for people with a diminished capacity, and legislation that prohibits ranked choice voting in all elections. It clarifies who is allowed in a polling place during the voting period and allows my office to purchase critical elections infrastructure without the red tape. To keep up the excellent customer service and quick turnaround times in our business and licensing divisions, I intend to seek support from the legislature to review fee structures and splits to retain the necessary percentage of my office's revenues. Examine service fees, such as service of legal process that haven't been updated in decades and cost taxpayers money. And reduce the cost for unnecessary mailings to defunct businesses. We use about $30,000 a year that doesn't need to be used for additional mailings, and we can do much better than that. My senior staff and I have been in discussions with members of the legislature and we anticipate there to be many more election integrity bills introduced, as well as those affecting businesses and licensees. As in the past, we'll be fully engaged during the 60-day session. We will listen to our county clerks on their legislative needs, the voters and the lawmakers on their priorities. We will attend every possible hearing to ensure subject matter expertise is available to the committees, and we will work with the governor to do our part to move the state forward in the right direction. And finally, I look forward to working with you, the press, and your association. Throughout our nation's history, newspapers have played a critical role in our society and government. It's not lost on any of us that the advent of the internet and cost of publication online have hurt your industry. While my office plays a minor role in your well-being, not being qualified to run legal ads could be detrimental for your revenues. So my door is open to you all to ensure you meet the requirements to be a qualified newspaper. And if you'd like to brainstorm ideas for how we can support your industry, my door is open and I welcome the dialogue. Thank you again for the invitation to be here today, and I look forward to working with you all. You want to go, and then we'll take questions together? All right. Okay. I want to make sure you're not cut short. Thanks, Kris.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Hunt, and I'm the state auditor. When I first ran for this office, I was a state senator running, and I talked to J.B. McCuskey one night in some county at some event somewhere, and J.B. said, you know, I really hate leaving the state auditor's office. And I thought to myself, why? I mean, why? Well, now I know the state auditor's office literally has its fingers in almost every aspect of government. We have a $328 million budget, and of that budget, we only have $2.7 million in general revenue fund. So we turn back to the state of West Virginia with the products that we provide and the work that we provide to the West Virginia citizens about $250 million every year. The auditor's office, by and large, is self-sufficient. We have 7 divisions, 180 employees. We do a lot of things, including auditing, but auditing is not primarily what we do. For instance, we're talking about legislative initiatives. I've been able to find several areas in the auditor's office in the 3 weeks I've been auditor that we can increase our special revenue, not only for the auditor, but for the people of West Virginia. Specifically, I am the Commissioner of Securities as auditor. So we review all security offerings in the state of West Virginia. So our security fees haven't been increased for over 10 years. We're not consistent with the contiguous states, and if we do a modest increase in securities, we can bring in several million more dollars for the people of West Virginia. And of course, those increases won't be West Virginia dollars. Those will be dollars from security houses that are offering securities and bonds in West Virginia. In addition to, I am also the Commissioner of Delinquent and Non-Entered Lands. So we sell all the delinquent lands in the state of West Virginia who become delinquent for taxes. And we have a plan to make that process better, not only for people who want to redeem the land, but to make it better for the state auditor and to be able to derive more money, more special revenue for the auditor's office. I also run OASIS, that the state's OASIS program the auditor runs. That's something that is a day-to-day event. I also run the state's purchasing card, the P card, some call it the procurement card. We have found problems with the procurement card. We also regulate the procurement card. We watch every transaction. The card is held by U.S. Bank. It's a Visa card. We watch every transaction in real time on the P card for fraud. So the P card is very safe. Right now, there's about $550 million of transactions a year that goes to the P card, and we keep 2% of it. So you guys do the math. We believe that we can increase P card transactions to at least $750 million. And of course, that would be, you guys do the math there, that would be several $1 million more for general revenue as well as to fund the auditor's office. Frankly, we're in a situation that with a few suggested legislative changes, I think the auditor's office can be completely ran on special revenue and not require any state dollars. So the auditor's office is in good shape. All is well. And like I said, I have nothing but good news. We have great employees, great people. The auditor's office is functioning. For you guys that don't know what the auditor's office really does, it's much like a treasurer in most states. I keep the state's checkbook. Basically, I pay all the bills, and then I keep the balance. We print the checks. We issue the checks. We pay the payroll in West Virginia. Most of it is through automatic transfer into banking accounts, debit accounts. There's just a variety of things the auditor's office does. For me to explain all that we do would take more time than I have, and that's why we have 180 employees and a $328 million budget, because literally, once again, our fingers is in every aspect of state government. So the auditor's office is in good shape, where all is well. I have nothing but good news coming out of the auditor's office. The former auditor, J.B. McCuskey, left me in a fairly good shape. There are things that we can do to make the office better, make the office a little more efficient, and provide more money for the general revenue fund. So that's my story. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Just as we did previously, Stephen, you put your hand down. So just as we did previously, anyone but Stephen Allen Adams can ask the first question. Apparently not. So, Steve?
Yes, this is for Secretary Warner. You talked about, as part of your platform, removing non-photo documents. You cited utility bills and bank statements as an example of that. Are you talking about removing all options for non-photo documents that are listed in code, or just the certain ones that you mentioned there? Thank you.
I think we're looking at all.
You can pull the mic off the stand, too.
I think we're looking at all of the non-photo forms that have been used. There are 22 other states that require photo ID for voting. 1.1 million of our West Virginians have a photo ID, and we have just at 1.2 million that are registered to vote. And there are exceptions, though, that exist for those like the Amish and elderly that might not have a photo ID. Yes, sir.
Henry Colby, House Mountain State Spotlight. I saw here, and you mentioned more transparency and dark money campaign financing activities. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit of what that would look like legislatively, if that's something y'all are pursuing?
Yep. Right now, you've got a reporting threshold of $5,000. We think that should be reduced to $1,000. You can have a couple of groups that just do, attack pieces on a candidate, and they can get that message out in the final days of a campaign. So it needs to be reduced to $1,000 from $5,000. Expand last-minute reports due to 24 hours post-publication from the 15th day to the 30th day prior to an election, and reduce anytime report filing threshold from $10,000 to $2,500, and this would also include digital communications. Yes, sir.
Hi, Katie Coyne, West Virginia Watch. Thank y'all for being here. For Auditor Hunt, two questions. One, you mentioned Oasis, but a big help for us in the media has been the checkbook sites, being able to look at municipal budgets, county budgets, that kind of stuff. Is that going to be something that is kept up under your office? And second, more specifically, One initiative that McCuskey tried to start and was in the process of doing when he was in office was the opioid settlement tracking. For over a year now on the website, it is said that that is in the works. What is the timeline on that? Is that a project that you all are still working on? And if so, do we have any estimate of when that could be online for the public to see and watch? Because those dollars are out there and they're being spent.
So you're basically talking about open government, and you're basically talking about the transparent checkbook. Okay. Well, you know, there's problems with the transparent checkbook. We intend to continue the transparency in the auditor's office and make it available. But if you look at what we're paying for open government, there was last year, let's see, there was 4,000 hits on that site in the last 90 days. So extrapolate that over 4 quarters. That's 1,600 hits on that site over the past year, and we're paying $9 million. So that's hundreds of dollars per hit on that site. So, and the site really doesn't do what we want it to do. I mean, a lot of the site is not in real time. Some of the entities on the site, their data is 18 months old and older. So we're paying a lot of money for that site that really doesn't do what we want it to do. So I don't know which direction, only being auditor for 3 weeks, I don't know which direction that we're going to go with that site. It certainly has to be improved. It has to be simplified, and we can't be paying $9 million for it, for something that really doesn't work. So to answer your question is, that information that you want, we will make it available, whether we turn it into an internal process and it's on our website, whether we strip down OpenGov and make it something very different, but we just cannot be paying $9 million for 1,600 hits a year on open government. The math just doesn't work out. That's hundreds of dollars a hit. That helps.
Just to follow up, specifically on the opioid settlement tracking, even if it's not been checked, what is your office's role going to be in tracking that settlement spend?
Well, yeah, that's something we intend to do, and I don't know how it's going to work right now. And I've had several proposals. We're also going to work with the open government people that have done that software to see if we can improve the process and see if we could get something that's not as costly. I mean, and frankly, a product that more people use. I mean, I go back to it again, 1,600 hits and $9 million. I haven't done the math, but that's hundreds of dollars a hit. So, yes is the answer, but I'm not sure how.
Let's move over here. Young man.
Thank you. My name is Liam Savage. I'm a staff writer at the columns at Fairmont State University. Secretary Warner, this question is for you. You have said that you wanted to prohibit ranked choice voting, or you want to advocate for prohibiting ranked choice voting in all elections. Could you clarify why exactly you want to prohibit ranked choice voting in all elections?
I mean, right now we can't do that at the state level, but you know, there's been question about municipalities, and I'm sorry, the ranked choice voting. You have horrible situations in other states where the third and fourth place candidate has been placed into office. I would suggest to you that it's, you know, our system. I mean, our elections are not broken here, so we don't, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've had the opportunity in the last 3 weeks to be on a 55 county tour with our county clerks. We visited just at 18 or 19 county clerks right now, and that is not anything that you know, that they want to have, you know, take place here in West Virginia. So we're going to do what we can to support that in front of the legislature this year.
If I can ask a follow-up, would you want this to be a constitutional amendment or just a statutory change?
I would leave that to our chief legal counsel and chief of staff. We got 2 very well-trained attorneys that I'll leave that to them, and quite frankly, the legislature and the people of West Virginia.
Hello.
We'll carry out the will of the legislature.
Hello. So you've got, this is for Secretary Warner as well, you've got clarifying who is allowed in polling places during the voting period. What does that mean exactly?
There's some of these on the clarification is just a matter of tightening up legislation that's already in place. We have issues about who can be within 100 feet of polling places, who can be entering into a polling place. We've had a situation with federal prosecutors who attempted to enter polling places to conduct assessments at election time. The Constitution calls for the time, manner, and place of elections to be left to the states. And having federal prosecutors, in a polling place is something that we need to tighten up and clarify.
Just a follow-up. This last election, when I was serving in our county,
There were reports that, there was a member at the polling place who was wearing Republican gear or something inside the polling place. Now, as a member of the media, I couldn't go in and verify that and see if it was true or not. Would you consider allowing the media to go into polling places and kind of observe the election?
Again, that's one that I would go and refer back to our legal counsel on exactly what the law states right now. Again, I'm 4 weeks into this job, and I would refer to counsel.
Other questions? Okay, well, if not, I want to thank Secretary Warner and Auditor Hunt for their time today. We are going to be doing lunch here shortly. Go. Yeah.
Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, John. He is correct. We are going to be doing lunch, but I just want to walk through lunch real quick. We have a presenter, and it's real timely and very worthwhile, talking from a research institution what the dollars that may or may not come mean to the state of West Virginia. And WVU is putting this on, so I'm going to give everybody about 15 minutes. Grab your food, come back and get your seat, and we're going to go right into, I see them back there. Yeah, we're going to go right into the presentation. There they are right there. So 15 minutes, we'll start the presentation. Thank you all.